Assalamu alaikum, fellow seekers of the extraordinary. Welcome to my channel, where we embark on the rewriting journey into the realm of the unknown. In today's spellbinding episode, we delve deep into the captivating world of the Jinn stories. So gather round, dear adventurers, as we open the door to a world of wonder and intrigue. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to join me on this extraordinary expedition into the realm of Jinn stories. Without further ado, let the journey begin. Plug in the earphones, switch off the light as we dive into the first story. Me and my uncle, who was driving from work one night, and this lady shows up on the side of the road crying and wailing and asking to be dropped back home. We were obviously freaked and said no, but the woman insisted, claiming her husband would get really mad and her daughters were alone at home, so we said yes. As soon as the woman was in the car, she was wailing and crying in a very quiet voice that sounded like some tune you would hear from a horror movie. She told him to drop her at a house near a river that was 2 hours drive away. We couldn't, so we instead decided taking her to the police station. After 15 minutes, the woman stops crying abruptly, and we look from the front mirror and sees that she has really long nails, and then notice that her feet were the opposite ways. We started getting really scared and thought of nothing other than to recite Ayatul Kursi in a whisper. Hearing us, the woman started smiling and giggling. As he raised his voice, she became quiet. After a minute, she told him to stop the car and drop her there. When she was getting out of the car, she told us that the only thing that saved him was him knowing Ayatul Kursi and Quran, and if he didn't, he would have been dead by now. So here's the second story, where the person says, I have an auntie, let's call her Auntie Fauzia. She had been married for a long time and had always wanted a baby but was unable to conceive. She always used to pray 5 times a day. One sunny day, she was at my grandmother's house in the prayer room. She was a pious lady and no one thought to check on her. 2 hours later, we heard screams like as if there was animal in the room. We all ran to check and there was Auntie Fauzia on the floor covered in shit. She had been shitting and had smeared her poop all over the wall and the Quran in the prayer room. This woman had never shown any sign of mental illness before that day. My grandmother asked her what she was doing. She turned around and said in Punjabi language and in a voice that was not hers, I have eaten Fauzia. I have eaten her children and I am going to eat all of you. My grandma locked the room from the outside and snatched up the kids and told us to run to my uncle's work and tell him that Auntie Fauzia was ill and had pooped all over the prayer room and to bring a Maulana. She was possessed for like 5 days. The whole town was aware of it. They even brought a priest from the Catholic Church, but it didn't work. On the 5th day, the Malims sent for a big sheikh from Yemen. Took him 3 more days on a dhow to Kenya. Meanwhile, Auntie Fauzia had to be tied with ropes to keep her from defiling everything in sight. Us kids were not allowed to see her, but we would often look through the windows. I was about 12 years old at that time. The sheikh from Yemen was called Sheikh Rocket. He asked for a white chicken, a white goat, an egg, and a block of wet concrete. He prayed, exorcised her, killed the chicken and the goat, and somehow coaxed the demon or the jinn or whatever into an egg. He put the egg in the wet concrete block and told my uncle to throw it in the Lake Victoria. Once the jinn was in the egg, she immediately fell into a stupor and wake up the next day perfectly normal. She also had a kid and is now even a grandmother. So this story is really scary. And here's the story number 3, where this person says, a relative told me that once him and his dad were on a long drive back from the home from the outskirts of the city. And because the area was not developed and not densely populated, the roads were not maintained or smooth. He told me that their car was the only thing on the road and the only light was coming from their car. And they were going down the road. After a while, they noticed lanterns floating out on a farming land. He said that it looked as if there were thousands of lanterns about 7 feet from the ground, and weirdly, they were not illuminating the land around them, only lights floating. Him and his dad were feeling a bit sleepy, and they had music on before, but remaining hours of the journey were spent with the Quran radio. Another thing was that these lights happened to be exactly opposite an old graveyard, and they could hear people cheering and shouting as if some type of party. So, this story is really creepy. Here is the fourth and last story, where this person says, I have a story to tell about jinns, and it was a crazy experience for me. Me and my family shifted our house to a new built one. It was like in April 2018 or 19. I was getting ready for school, minding my own business. Suddenly I felt a shadow near me like black figure that went from the living room towards the end of the other hall. I screamed, jumped, I rushed towards my sister. They thought it was my assumption or something. I thought it was my own thought and moved on. One Friday, my Ammi took a day off from her work and asked me to take a day off with her. I don't know what came to my mind. I wanted to go to school that specific day. Everyone in my family was either at work or school. Ammi was alone preparing some chicken dish for the lunch. She felt totally exhausted. She went out of the kitchen. The vessel suddenly fell down from the stove. Alhamdulillah, she was somehow harmless. But her health started to go downwards. My neighbor from the upper floor said that one day she was reading Quran and praying Tahajjud namaz. After some time, when she looked in the mirror, her face looked like someone else. We left that house as soon as possible, but our neighbor remained there. Her daughter one night was sleeping in the room, but suddenly a figure started to choke her out. She struggled to free herself, and then later she somehow managed to read some ayat from the Quran and free herself. And some other day her grandma came to visit her place. She was peacefully sleeping on the sofa but suddenly fell on her face down like someone shoved or pushed her down. Lately, they also managed to move out of the place as soon as they could. And in the year 2020 or something, I had a dream where I saw a shadow calling me. I followed the shadow towards the building later sometime. I saw it was like my aunt's house, whom I used to visit frequently. I walked inside the house. The room had a yellowish light that was flickering. And when I saw down, I saw a burnt figure lying on the floor. I screamed in my dream and woke up sweaty and tired. Ammi banned from visiting my aunt and tried to tell my aunt, but she didn't believe. Later, my uncle got into an accident. Later, things went south for them and eventually left that house. One day, I was alone in my house with my niece, who was just like 3 months. I saw a figure walking towards my room. I had goosebumps and I was scared for the first time. I recited some surah and Ayatul Kursi. The very next same timing, I saw the figure peeping from the same room, like his body was bent and staring right at me. I somehow got courage, knowing we only fear Allah and no one else, and I read that this type of thing only fear Allah. So I went straight towards the exact same position where that thing was standing and recited Ayatul Kursi and Kalma loudly. I haven't seen that figure from that day. So these are the stories sent by the followers, and I chose the few stories that I found scary and creepy. Anyway, that's all for today. I hope you like the stories. If you have any suggestion, comment down below. And if you want me to feature your story, feel free to DM me on Instagram. I will come up with different content stories super soon. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.